all the procedures are finalized on the European side, let's say, because this ministerial actually endorsed the willingness to accept Georgia's status of being the full-fledged contracting party in the energy community. So now we have to do our formal procedures, which is to submit it to the government, followed to submit it to the parliament. And of course, the ratification process will take place, and we think the new parliament will be very much supportive to this initiative, that we are very eager to pursue it in a short period of time. But despite that, we know what is written there, what are the timelines, what are the commitments, what are the visions. So of course we already have started developing the action plans accordingly. And particularly today's meeting is very much focused on the sustainable development, which is the combination of the efforts of renewable energy efficiency. For the energy efficiency, of course, legal basis will be ultimately in accordance with the Energy Community Treaty, because, as you know, for the Energy Efficiency Directive of 2012, it was transposed to Energy Community Framework last ministerial in 2015. Adequate adaptation period is granted to all contracting parties, and of course this is also reflected in our protocol for accession. And of course we're disregarding that formally it's not enforced, but of course this is the document and this is the guideline that we are following, and we took advanced steps towards this direction. So with the help of EBRD, we are in the progress to finalize the first national energy efficiency action plan, and we are expecting the presentation of final draft by the consultant very shortly, which then we will open the discussions between the stakeholders, and of course submit for the public hearings this energy efficiency action plan, of course with arguments, with motivations, and with the justification of the vision, which will be reflected in this document, and will be some kind of roadmap of our efforts in the coming years. As for the energy efficiency targets, you know that there is a specific methodology, and particularly for contracting parties, it was defined what are the primary energy and final energy reflected in the figures that needs to be met as the target for the contracting parties. The same will be elaborated for Georgia as well. But despite of that fact, if you see what our commitment is, basically it somehow is reflected in the INDC commitment that we have signed and committed to, where you will see what is the demand that we are projecting and what are the targeted targets that we are going to reduce our emissions from the perspective of compared to the business as usual scenario, with no support 15%, with support another 15%, which is, I think, quite aggressive target, but we believe that we have the resources for that. And of course, we base our expectation based on the renewable promotion, energy efficiency measures, because I think this is the most instrumental to achieve these targets, and we have the resources for that. As for the renewable part of the business, you know that we have quite aggressively started developing the renewable energy resources in our country, which was motivated basically for the competitiveness and reasonability and commerciality perspective point of view, but it only addresses only part of the renewable resources, and some other areas are not that much developed. The very first wind farm was just completed recently. I cannot say that a lot of people like this project because of its feasibility and commerciality aspects, but there are a lot of other attributes associated with this project, visual, political, economic, policy priorities. So this is the combination that we also attach the value to, not just the figures, what the price is paid or not, security needs, and many other aspects, and technology, bringing the technology, because we have to start at some point, right? And we have the wind potential, and we will be progressing towards this direction. The same the same approach will be applied, hopefully, and I'm very eager to go for the solar power plant as the pilot one, which actually will introduce the technology and create some service background and some knowledge in-house, which potentially can be scaled up. As for the renewable action plan, as you have maybe seen in the protocol, we don't have the targets identified for Georgia yet. For the other contracting parties, these targets are there already for 2020. But in case of Georgia, it makes no sense actually to identify the targets for this period, because it takes time to identify the targets and no time actually to implement it. So I think that for the other contracting parties as well, there will be some revision of these targets for 2025 and maybe 2030 as well, because global target is actually to get some commitment for the 2030 period. And I think that these interim targets also will be identified according to the methodology which is applied for contracting parties in the energy community. We think that the baseline starting point needs to be identified, and in the protocol, the Secretariat committed to do the study where the starting point will be identified with the methodology. We will see what is the targets that we have to comply with. But the good thing is that the different elements are already under progress. We know that there is a quite complex biomass study which is in progress now, and this is a quite big resource contribution to the renewable promotion policy to make it effective. There are not only the biomass but also waste and some other alternative resources that potentially can play a role, maybe less significant than hydro and biomass, but still have the possibility to contribute to our targets. And as for the action plan, we agreed with the UN to go ahead with the renewable action plan, and we asked them to support us in developing this very first project in terms of the renewable, where the major stakeholder of course will be Ministry of Energy. As I said, we have timelines for that, but why we should be losing time, because it's still coming. So we would rather take the advantage of having the good partners with us on board, so to address this issue. So it's too long, it became too long my speech. So anyhow, I just wanted you to give some information where we stand. It's not enough, but at least this is something more that we were not doing previously. So I think that this is a very good start, and with the partners. And it will be very interesting developing process of the renewable action plan, where the institutional setup, incentives, mechanisms needs to be processed in our minds. And we all know that without support, with the status of policy priority, just the markets and just the commercial incentives will not drive this policy priority ahead. It was not case in countries even richer than Georgia, and of course it will not be case in Georgia. So we have to understand, everybody, and government have to listen to this as well, that without this support, financial and our partners are also very keen to help us with this effort to implement and introduce effective schemes. Whether it will be financial schemes, whether it will be capacity contribution schemes, or in kind or financial, whatever the contribution is there, of course the support will be required. Otherwise we will fail to meet our targets and policy priorities, and just market. We cannot leave this issue just on the market, because we are a small market, cheap market, and there is no much incentives to go ahead with this. So I think this mobilization of the effort will be very much instrumental to move things forward. With that, I will finalize my introduction speech, and of course give the floor to George, which basically continue in more detail, in a more interesting manner for our discussion of today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Deputy Minister. Mrs. Mariam Balashvili comprehensively presented current development in the sector. I'll not talk too much. First of all, thanks to the donors. It's a Slovak Aid and Europe Foundation who just support the project, and special thanks to Lazar Foundation, which is the main organizer of the conference. And today's discussion will be on the role and functions of Energy Efficiency Fund, which should be developed in Georgia. And I also want to thank to Mr. Artur Bogovinsky, which is a Slovak expert and which will share their experience to us in developing such funds in the country. Just to know that energy efficiency funds are an important drivers to foster the implementation of efficient implementation of objectives and goals of set in the National Energy Efficiency Action Plans. Just we have drafted and which will be adopted in this year. Key things which can be taken into account when talking about such funds, it's that the government should guarantee the transparency of the fund, sustainability, flexibility, and also the scope of the work of the fund, which will be marginal for the sustainability of the fund in the future. Such funds are often used in developed countries, in energy community countries, in European Union countries, and we have our expert Natalia will present some countries' experience in the field as well. So I'll not continue too much. Miss Natalia Ekavaramidze will just present about short information about the project, and then we'll go to the presentations.
Thank you, everyone. First of all, thank you everyone for coming, and thank you to the Deputy Minister for joining us today for this discussion. As you know, this working group meeting is already the third meeting. We will have probably sometime in December the last fourth meeting. We will communicate with you later at the later stage and share with you our ideas regarding the topic of the last meeting. I also would like to thank our experts who really worked hard to prepare these recommendations to present to you, and I would really appreciate to share your thoughts and your comments and notes regarding the paper, which is very important for us, and later our experts will incorporate your comments into the document, and the final document will be translated into Georgian and submitted to the relevant state institutions. So it will be Ministry of Environment and Ministry of Economy. And now I think we can...
Now we can start presentation, which is more important now, and Natalia will present her recommendation.
Maybe we should switch.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you everyone for coming. I will try to make some recommendations concerning the possible functions and role of Energy Efficiency Agency or fund. However, these recommendations is basically it's a ground for discussion today. So I'll be happy to receive your feedback and comments, basically your thoughts that we have discussed today. But before I start talking about the recommendations, let me just briefly describe some background information. So Georgia just, as was already mentioned, just finished development of the first national energy efficiency action plan. And in this action plan, it's stated that energy efficiency agency or fund will be established. It's approximately by the end of 2017 it's going to be established. And as well, the action plan includes some broad vision of how this agency should look like and what can be the possible functions of this fund. So the fund will be allowed to intervene related to energy efficiency, renewable energy, and even perhaps waste or other environmental issues. According to the action plan, the fund will be extra budgetary. So apart from allocations from state budget and donor funds, there is additional sources of funding, which could be funding from a line item in electricity and natural gas bills, or funding from an increased tax on or other fees on cars which are inefficient, or maybe some taxes on energy usage of industrial companies if they do not meet the commitments for energy efficiency. Initial activities will focus on project investment identification, donor coordination, facilitation of grant making, and facilitation of technical assistance. As well, donor funds can be also transferred through the fund, who then hire staff or consultants as needed. And these activities should be particularly focused on leveraging grants and technical assistance for private sector finance. And as stated, it's an action plan. The focus of the fund will not be on establishing only a financial institution which lends directly to clients, since Georgia already has some effective financial sector in this regard. Initial focus will be based on three main beneficial groups. First, it's private actors, including industries and power sector companies, to stimulate improvements of energy efficiency and the energy audits. The second group is municipalities and central government ministries or agencies to stimulate public buildings improvements, street lighting improvements, transport speed improvements, etc. And also, of course, the general public. And in this regard, there is need for general awareness raising. General awareness raising on energy efficiency in residential sector and related to efficient lighting regulations. Also, for example, green driving information campaigns, and also NAMA, which is planned for efficient stocks and solar hot water heaters. According to the action plan, the establishment of fund is planned to be completed by 2017, and initially it is planned that it will be in-kind contribution for the government of Georgia for policy development, for the staff, for the implementation management. It's estimated that from the beginning it will be from 5 to 10 staff people, and then the size of the organization will grow depending on the level of progress of the fund. This is the first time that similar agency will be established in Georgia. However, now we have some funding programs. Some of them are dedicated and developed for improvements in energy efficiency. Some have more broad goals, but also among other projects finance energy efficiency and renewable energies. So I just read on this slide the main of them. First, we have energy credit, which is basically the program financed funded by EBRD, which provides $35 million to Georgia financial institutions, and then these commercial banks lend to businesses and individuals which are going to implement energy efficiency measures. Successful projects in environmental friendly investments can benefit from 10 or 50% margin call, 10% in case if an individual invests on energy efficient technologies, and 50% in case when a business conducts energy audits and measures included in the energy audits, about 50% cash can be returned to implement these measures and the rest of the energy audit. And during the last 6 years, total amount of loans that were distributed was about $51.7 million. There is also Georgian Energy Development Fund, which is a state-owned fund, which was established in 2010. And goal of the fund is search for prospective projects of renewable energy sources and promotion of their development. The fund is involved in investing in renewable energy projects, such as, for example, Taryali HPP, the recently built the first wind power plant in Georgia, Mafani HPP Cascade, and others. There is also a partnership fund, which is state-owned investment fund, and the fund is split into 2 separate business units. It has assets management, because it owns some companies like, for example, Georgian Railway, and some shares in Telasi, for example. And also it conducts investment activities. From among other projects, it invests in energy projects, including renewable energy as well. An example is building of Kasleti HPP, Lukhuni, and Metsgrad. And also it was involved in building the combined cycle thermal power plant, which is the most efficient thermal power plant we have now, among others. And we have also private investment fund, this is co-investment fund, and the fund involved in financing of broad variety of projects. But it has also one direction, is energy and infrastructure projects. And for this, the fund is allocated up to 3 billion capital for investments. And among other projects, the fund invests in renewable energy projects, which is, for example, Kuaga HPP, Oni HPP Cascade, and Tsvensk Lake, Airport Transfer. Apart from that, although the action plan has not been approved yet, and the establishment is there is no clear vision on what kind of function the fund can have. Ministry of Energy and Ministry of Economy, they both have their own ideas and own vision how this fund can look like. I had conducted some consultations with Ministry of Energy and Ministry of Economy as well to find out what are the state position in this regard. So here I just try to shortly present what the Ministry of Energy, and if I'm wrong, maybe the Minister can correct me. So agency initially will be established with a financial support from the government. However, then it will try to transform a financially independent entity. Apart from supporting energy efficiency improvement, the agency may work on renewable energy development as well. So cover not only energy efficiency but also renewable energy projects. Main functions of the agency in Ministry's view is similar to those stated in the National Energy Efficiency Action Plan, because this action plan was developed in tight collaboration with the Ministry of Energy. Ministry considers future involvements of the agency in development of country strategic documents such as energy efficiency strategy, renewable energy strategy, and corresponding national energy efficiency action plans and renewable energy action plans. Energy will be one of the main implementation bodies of the nation strategies as well, and it may be also involved in research activities. Presence of the agency will have to coordinate donor efforts in support of energy efficiency and renewable energy projects, at the same time ensuring that there is no overlapping between projects and project results are sustainable with sufficient follow-up activities. At the same time, Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development has its own view, and I had yesterday meeting in the Ministry of Economy, and they told me they think that the agency should be focused only on energy efficiency field, and the agency can combine the funds and agency functions, so it can finance projects, but at the same time can be involved in analytical work. And considering the possible functions of the agency, Ministry sees it being established under the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development, because it has responsibility for buildings, for transport, and for industry sectors, and these are one of the main sectors where energy efficiency improvements are needed. Ministry and the agency initially should be funded with obligations from the state budget, is similar to the Ministry of Energy's field, and they think that eventually it should be also transformed to financially independent organization, and some financing should be come from other sources as well. So I made also a short world experience review to see how other countries are doing in this regard and what kind of funds are in other countries and what are the functions of this fund. I picked 5 countries, and some of them are from our region, some of them are members of the energy community. So let's start with Armenia, close neighboring country. So Armenia has renewable resources and energy efficiency fund, which was established in 2006 by the government of Armenia, and it's interesting that it was established as an independent non-government organization. The main functions and activities of the fund are the following. The fund provides comprehensive assistance for renewable energy and energy efficiency project developers, investors, banks, condominium associations, researchers, etc. It provides professional expertise for government in issues related to the green energy development strategy legislation, so it's also involved in legislation development, and the fund also continues to analyze the situation, identify barriers and proposing solutions to the government, so advising government what measures should be taken. And here is an example of projects that the fund conducts. So the fund not only coordinates the activities of donor projects, but it's also implementing some of the projects. And these are quite large projects, for example, renewable energy projects supported by World Bank, Global Environmental Fund, and BRD with funding of $15 million. Also, the World Bank finances heating projects in schools and residential buildings, and also we support the scaling up renewable energy program funded by climate investment funds. The fund developed investment plan for Armenia. The fund also works in close collaboration with different international financial institutions that are presented in Armenia, such as World Bank, BRD, UNDP, etc. So its fund comes not only from the government but from donor projects as well. Quite interesting experience also in Azerbaijan, this is one representative of our region. In 2009, state agency for renewable energy sources under the Ministry of Energy and Ministry of Industry and Energy was established, and initially the staff unit was 35 people. However, in 3 years, the state company of Azerbaijan Online and Renewable Energy Sources, with staff unit of 75 people, was established instead of this agency, and this February was abolished. In 2015, 2013, under the decree of President of Azerbaijan, the state agency of alternative renewable energy sources was established as an independent state agency with staff of 100 people. And at the same time, there was another limited liability company established, and the main goal of this liability company is to realize projects in generation, transmission, distribution of energy and purchase of equipment. So the state agency works mostly with legislation and analytical kind of issues, while this limited liability company is more involved with practical implementation of projects, purchase of technologies, installations, building of power plants, etc. Examples of projects conducted by the agency are the following. And by the way, this limited liability company is incorporated in the state agency of alternative renewable resources together. Examples of projects conducted by the agency is drafting of comprehensive and integrated development strategy in the energy sector, preparation of feasibility studies for establishment of independent regulatory agency in the field of power, supported by the state investment program. Several power plants have been built, also construction of wind measurement station to determine wind potential, and many others. The next experience is from Moldova. Why Moldova? Because it one of the recent members of energy community, it joined the energy community in 2010. At the same time, the level of development of Moldova is way behind the other European countries, so in some regard may be similar to our situation. Moldova has established energy efficiency fund in 2012. And the fund is managed by administrative board that consists of one representative from Ministry of Economy, one representative from Ministry of Finance, one representative from Ministry of Environment, one from Ministry of Regional Development and Construction, and 5 representatives from private sectors and international donor organizations, out of which at least 2 are financial experts. The fund funded by state budget mainly. Also, it funded by donations from individuals and businesses, grants from the European Union, financial income interest on current accounts and bank deposits, loans, and other financial instruments. And the fund's main activities are providing technical and financial assistance for energy efficiency and renewable energy projects, direct financial contributions, acting as agents or mediator for other sources of financing, providing full or partial guarantees in case of financing by banks. At the same time, Moldova has established energy efficiency agency, just at the same time as the energy community in 2010. And this agency acts as a central public authority, and main activities of the agency are participation in elaboration of draft legal acts, including technical regulation and standards, participation in development of state programs and action plans, advising central and local authorities on improving the energy efficiency and use of renewable energy sources, improving projects in the field of energy efficiency and renewable energy financed from the state budget and energy efficiency fund, coordinating the programs and action plans developed by local authorities, international institutions and organizations, and development of regulation and methodologies for energy audit. Also, of course, it's involved in awareness raising and dissemination of information, and the agency is headed by the director, who is appointed by the Ministry of Economy. And the agency is fighting for the state budget, and the Ministry of Economy is only central authority, is energy sector. So there is no Ministry of Energy in the world, so responsibility of Ministry of Energy is under the Ministry of Economy. The second experience in Croatia has Environmental Protection and Energy Efficiency Fund, which was established in 2003 as a non-budgetary fund with the status of a legal person with public authority. And the fund acts in 3 areas. It's environmental protection, energy efficiency, and renewable energy. The fund is managed by a management board that is appointed by the government, and it also, similar to Moldova, consists of different representatives from Ministry of Environment and Energy, from Ministry of Finance, and Croatian Chamber of Economy. And also one participant is from experts in the field of environmental protection. The fund is funded by charges on polluters of the environment, charges on users of the environment, charges on burdening the environment, so the companies that produce environment and charges for motor vehicles, especially for those that are not efficient. The budgets of units of local and regional self-government in accordance with the common programs. Also, revenues generated from international bilateral and multilateral cooperation programs, and revenues and inflows from managing free financial assets of the fund, as well as donation assistance from donor agencies. The fund main activity is to co-finance energy efficiency programs and projects in accordance with the energy strategy and national energy efficiency program. And also the fund co-finances projects by civil society organizations in the field of energy efficiency and renewable energy projects. And the last experience is from Italy, which is the most developed country, sample those that we discussed. Italy has National Agency for New Technologies, Energy and Sustainable Economic Development, which was established in 2009. However, this was followed by long histories of transformation of this agency, because initially it was established in the 50s. Agency has more than 2,600 employees, so it's a large agency. And currently the agency represents the National Agency for Energy Efficiency and Implementation of Energy Efficiency Directive. Main activities of the agency are technical and scientific support and advice to the state, regions and local authorities, support to the Ministry of Economic Development and regions for the general control and supervision of the implementation of measures for energy efficiency, verification and monitoring of the projects and measures of the energy efficiency, dissemination of information, and it has a web portal called National Energy Efficiency Agency, which provides any kind of information to the users. Also, the development and engineering of technological systems, so it's directly involved in the research. Development of reference guidelines and indexes for the legislator, evaluation and consumption of significant types of buildings, and development of specific eco design and energy labeling, creation of laboratories to certify the companies of domestic appliances. And additionally, in Italy, there is National Fund for Energy Efficiency, which, in contrast to agency, acts as motion funding. The fund is established at the Ministry of Economic Development, and it was established as a transposition of Energy Efficiency Directive, because in the Energy Efficiency Directive there is a direct obligation of member states to establish National Energy Efficiency Fund. Related actions are energy efficiency in public building, district heating and cooling, energy efficiency of residential buildings, social housing, energy efficiency in services and industry sectors. And according to the latest energy efficiency action plan of Italy, the fund will receive resources amounting to 490 million euros in the period of 2020. This basically means that it will receive 70 million per year. And the fund is a revolving fund and has two sections which operates. First, it provides guarantees on individual operations on a portfolio basis on loans granted to businesses to implement energy efficiency projects. And the second activity is grant loans directly, also banks and financial intermediaries, including the European Investment Bank, to implement energy efficiency projects. Based on the consultations that I conducted in this review, I just picked some, I call them recommendations, but basically this is around for discussion and discussed today. This is basically something that should be think of once establishing the fund and thinking about these functions. First, the agency can be established initially under the ministry. However, probably it should be then transformed to an independent body in order to avoid potential conflict of interest. Because I saw in the countries that I reviewed, basically, in majority of them, the fund is acting as an independent body. In order to attract and maintain qualified staff, a proper human resource policy should be in place in this agency. And this is very important that in the agency there is really qualified staff, so that the agency can be involved in research, in consultancy, and of course it's important that this qualified staff is not only attracted but also maintained. So the policy should include adequate reward and recognition plans, as well as staff incentive programs. I think that there should be more specific qualified staff, like there should be someone responsible for energy efficiency, there should be engineers who are comfortable with buildings and energy heating, there should be someone responsible for maybe biomass issues, etc. It's very important that the agency is transparent, and today in the morning we have a very interesting discussion with Slovak expert, and he provided us examples where not transparent, how bad when the agency is not transparent. And transparency is important also to attract funds from the donor agencies. If the agency is not transparent, then they have less willingness to invest in this agency. And also agency may be dealing with substantial funds, and again, it should be transparent for this reason as well. The agency can have several separate divisions, so division for renewable energy, division for energy efficiency, and separate financial divisions that can play a role of the fund for finance projects, and maybe environmental division as well. The agency should be involved in development of energy efficiency and renewable energy policy and strategies, as well as in development of action plans. And basically, this will be a good facility with qualified staff, with strong analytical skills that can be involved in development of these documents, and also in reviewing national energy efficiency action plans, which will be reviewed regularly, and provide develop the reports on the pace of the implementation of these action plans. And also it can be involved in development of energy efficiency legislation as well. The agency can be involved in research activities. For example, it can conduct energy planning, feasibility studies, etc. Currently, for example, Ministry of Energy has energy planning tool, and we just a couple of years ago there was a capacity building for analytical department of the Ministry of Energy to train them in the energy planning tools. However, unfortunately, many of these trained staff have already left the ministry, so maybe the energy planning functions may be transferred to the agency. The agency should organize and coordinate implementation of energy efficiency action plan and renewable action plan, as well as energy efficiency and renewable energy strategies once such documents will be developed. And additionally, it can be involved in monitoring and measurements of effects of implemented measures, so how well we are doing, whether we are implementing this National Energy Efficiency Action Plan, and compare what were the financial resources that we spent for these measures and what the impacts of these measures, so how much savings do we get. The agency research facility can be involved in development of guidelines for certification procedures for energy efficient technologies, especially for those technologies that are produced in Georgia. And here the big issue is wood stoves, which are mainly produced in Georgia, and there is no certification up to now, no obligatory, no monetary standards. Development of procedures could be one of the measures to boost this market for wood stoves and to create local business activities. Also, can be possible collaboration with JITA. JITA is the Georgian Innovation and Technology Agency, to develop joint programs to stimulate innovative solutions for improvements in energy efficiency, performance of buildings, industry and transport, as well as renewable energy technologies. Currently, JITA has a number of programs with goal to support young innovators and innovations. However, they do not have some dedicated programs for energy efficiency, so they just finance innovative projects. There may be some in collaboration with the agencies. They might be creating some joint programs that will be dedicated to renewable energy technologies developments or energy efficiency. And of course, there is need for awareness raising, and here the agency can play a major role for information outreach programs, educational programs for schools and universities. And it's also very important to raise the qualified staff, because we don't have many qualified staff, and there is need to raise this new generation of qualified staff. There can be created web portal to disseminate information on energy efficiency technologies, and as well as possibilities to get finance for energy efficiency projects. There is need, of course, for capacity building of state organization staff in energy efficiency and renewable energy issues, here agency can play a very good role. It can conduct this capacity building, and also the agency should be learning organization, so it should conduct capacity building of the agency itself. Any additional functions that can have the agency can have is business association support. For example, targeted support for key economic sectors, for example, tourism, food and drinks industry or other. For example, we have Georgian Small and Medium-Sized Enterprise Association. We also have Georgian Wine Association. There may be some targeted programs, like for example, in 1 year, we can provide some co-financing or some subsidies to participants from this association who want to improve energy efficiency performance of the industries. And why associations is good because you can easily reach different businesses who are part of this association. So for you it's easier to collaborate with them. And also consultancy activities is important. The agency staff can consult industry on the solutions to reduce energy consumption. An agency can be basically one stop for industry and individuals to receive any kind of information concerning the possibilities to conduct energy audits, to get funding for energy efficient improvements, what can be potential optimal technologies mixed to improve energy efficiency, etc. And there should be probably a separate financial division which can coordinate energy credit program activities, because there are some criticisms that currently this energy credit is not as efficient as it could be. So maybe if the agency can coordinate its activities, maybe its efficiency will be improved. And here is a possible sources of funding for the fund. Of course, initially it should be funded by the state budget. And it is important for financial stability. But the agency can also attract some different funds, for example, from EU, and either directly or through different framework programs, such as Horizon 2020. And Horizon 2020 basically is a very big possibility for Georgia. This year in spring, Georgia signed association with Horizon 2020 and became associated country, which basically means that now Georgian organization can participate in this program with the same rights as member states. It means that you can be part of the consortium and we can even coordinate the projects. And there is really huge facility, huge funds that can be utilized. Also, international climate funds can be considered as one of the potential sources of financing, because energy efficiency and renewable energy is everything about it's one of these benefits is CO2 and greenhouse gas emissions. So international climate funds can also finance some projects. And also international donors organizations, since agency can not only coordinate but also implement number of donors, projects promoting energy efficiency and renewable energy use. And I think that should be separate fundraising unit which will be involved in finding the appropriate fund, and at least one person maybe should be devoted to Horizon 2020 project, because it really requires much time and efforts. And of course, one of potential source of funding is donations from businesses and individuals. And if the fund or agency performs well, then of course there may be some donations from the businesses. So here there was some main recommendations that I wanted to share with you, and I would be glad if you have any feedback. So these are for discussion, these are not any, there is no final draft. We can discuss it today, and then I will incorporate your comments and feedbacks in one document that will present separately.
Thank you, Natalia. Just to recall what Natalia presented now, Natalia shared us 5 countries' experience in terms of establishment of energy efficiency fund agency, and those countries were Armenia, Azerbaijan, Italy, Moldova, Croatia. It's important that to share our neighboring countries' experience, because we have some specificity, some common things, and thank you for that, Natalia. As for the recommendation parts, Natalia just recommend in three different things. First, general, she gave us general recommendations, functions, what can be functions and activities of the fund, and possible sources of funding. Just to summarize that what was in the general part and in addition to these two parts as well, Natalia noted that it's important that the fund or agency should be finally an independent body. Special attention should be paid to the human resource policies, because it's important to maintain qualified staff in the agency, and it can be consistent with two different divisions: renewable energy and energy efficiency, and can also be added environmental part as well. As for the functions and activities, Natalia recommended that fund or agency can also be involved in the development of energy efficiency and renewable energy policies, strategies, action plans, and all this stuff. Also, it can implement research activities. Agency should organize and coordinate implementation of energy efficiency action plan, and so on. And as for the funding, source of fundings, she just gave us different sources. It can be international climate funds, donor organizations, EU support, and one of them is Horizon 2020, which can be really interesting for us. And mainly the main source of funding for the agency should be the state budget. This is a small summary what Natalia just presented us. If you have some comments or questions, you can just ask. But before asking questions, just introduce yourself. Thank you. If Deputy Minister has some comments. Okay, yeah.
I'm Tamar Barsanidze from Virginia, Georgian National Energy and Water Supply Regulatory Commission. My question is, you emphasize that you want this agency to be independent then. Why do you insist then that this agency to be established by state budget?
Well, because initially this is a new agency, and initially if it will left without state budget, you need to pay salaries at least. You need to develop policy, you need to develop statutes of this fund, and at the same time the fund should have some political support behind.
And how are you going to remove this
if,
political
yes,
influence
so
after
if initially the fund is funded only by donor projects, then it will not be stable, because sometimes you have more projects, sometimes you have less. Then you should be always involved in fundraising. You should see someone who will write these proposals all the time. So maybe initially there is need for government budget allocation.
May I add to that? We are not talking about independence, where independence is, the quality of independence is with the regulator. We are not talking about that. Independent means that there is a very specific function of this agency, and it cannot be physical. It can be physically independent, but not functional. Because if state budget is paying, it doesn't mean that it's independent from the regulator perspective point of view. Yes, this is institutional independence we're talking about, with its charter, with its setup, with its organization, funding, whatever the funding is there. So for this type of agencies, for example, I'm always referring to one of the options that, one of the scenarios that I prefer personally to apply, which is already accommodated in Georgia's reality, and it's more or less awareness is there with this type of setup, which is, for example, Producing Georgia, Enterprise Georgia. It's a separate seat, how they call it, with limited legal entity or something. Yeah, it's not LTD, but some
legal body of
yes,
public law.
authority or public whatever, public law. So this type of, it does not restrict the state budget money to flow as the financing source for this entity, but at the same time it's not limited to receive other funding options as well. So I think this is a very good institutional setup as it is there. We might use this setup, and at least we can diagnose whether it's working or not, but I personally think that it works perfectly. So this type of setup, which is already accommodated in legal framework of Georgia, is there. So no limitations on the state financing, it can be injected very freely. And on the other hand, some other sources of financing can be mobilized as well. Moreover, I think particularly banks cooperation, iFinance cooperation, capacity, assistance that is provided to this lab actually is there already, and it's not the kind of know-how that we cannot accommodate in this particular case. The focus, scale, eligibility might be different for the project who potentially might benefit from this, and I don't think that there should be a separate agency or entity or whatever just for energy efficiency. It's too extra cost for administrative cost for managing that. I think whatever is serving clean energy production, climate change, renewable promotion, I think we have enough scale to manage it with one agency which will combine all these type of things. I think this will be my preference and my recommendation out of these different options which are there. And institutional setup, this was a very comprehensive outset and review how it's done and managed by different countries. But of course, in Georgia's reality, it might work differently. In case of Moldova, I know that it's not one of the best success stories, and I'm very close following that because this is one of the contracting parties in the energy community, and we know how it worked. Neither case is for Armenia, because that was more private interest rather than public interest that was introduced there. So, in Azerbaijan, Azerbaijan is purely kind of artificially managed institution, which is not based on the motivation, its performance. So I think we would rather refer to more European country experience, which is more policy oriented, with the clear values, with the clear institutional setup, rather than the countries which artificially created for some specific purposes.
For example?
Yes. But this is just explanation for the audience who has no broader understanding what it is about and might not differentiate what is good or what is bad. We know what was the follow-up of these different decision makings that was applied in case of establishing these funds or not. Sorry for this introduction.
Thank you for comments. I think it's better to continue with the next presentation. Our Slovak expert will present their experience. Mr. Artur Bobovitsky will present Slovak experience in the field, and after that we will have a discussion and you can ask questions of both experts.
Hello to everybody.
Thank you very much for inviting me to this event. I think some of the things which I will present will be complementary to the presentation about the potential structure of your foundation in Georgia. I like very much the commitment of the ministry and the person of the deputy minister. I think you have inspiration, you have aspiration. What you will and you have to expect is perspiration, for sure.
Not enough. Only inspiration is not enough.
No, perspiration, because perspiration is coming from the how I will reach the money. What I was missing in this, I was not missing too much things, but in the presentation which has been presented here, I think it's not aspirational enough. If you are talking about 5 to 10 people, I don't think it's sufficient.